Hello, everybody. Welcome to the series, Why Are You Not Married Yet? On today's show, we're going to be sitting down with married men and to get your perspective about marriage. I have with me Richard Fajumalu. He is a father, a husband, and a fitness specialist. Thank you for coming. And I also have with me Abang Mohase. He is a father, a husband, and a diversity and reconciliation specialist. Thank you for coming. Hello everybody, thank you for clicking my channel. My name is Emoitinya and I am a visual storyteller. A wise woman told me that marriage is a gift. But then she also added that you don't know exactly what you're getting. You don't know what kind of gift you're getting until you're in a marriage, right? So Richard, I want you to talk to me about this. Do you agree with that?
As a gift, maybe a gift to a woman. And maybe that's what she was kind of alluding to. I think for us as men, it seems to be a thing that we do because we're doing it for our parents. Kind of, in a sense, say a tradition in a sense, I guess. Well, your parents were married, and they want you also to be married. So I don't look at it as a gift for us as the men, as a gift for the woman, because you spend that whole day preparing for that woman, not so much the man. So that's my thought on that.
Wow. Then it made it seem as though it's not something that you would have done if it wasn't for the pressure, right? Or if it wasn't for the fact that...
I won't say it's not more so about pressure. I mean, nobody wants to live by themselves. Right. So internally, you want to have somebody that you grow old with.
Yeah.
As probably could go off the topic slightly a little bit, but statistics is basically if you've been with somebody for so long, that you've been married with for so long, let's say that one die, it doesn't take long for the other, because then they've been together for so long, they've been so tied, they've been that's been your best friend in a sense, and generally the other one doesn't take too long before that other one's die. So I don't want to say that I would have never done it. But as a man, I don't, in a sense, look to say my initial thing was to be married. Eventually it came around to that point, but my initial thing wasn't to be married. But eventually it happened. And I believe that we often go through not really knowing who that woman's going to be. So as a man, we generally go through different women before we actually find one that we feel is to our liking or compatible to what we like. And of course, you never want to be in a marriage where you feel the woman is changing who you are or you changing who that woman is. So that's why I kind of don't consider it to be a gift. It's a blessing, but I don't think.
But you don't think it's a gift?
Yeah.
Wow. Abang, you talked about vulnerability when it comes to marriage, and the fact that a woman has to open, or a man, you both have to open yourself up to loving each other. And if that doesn't happen, then it can cause a friction in the marriage. So I want you to talk to me about that. What does the vulnerability have to do with a healthy marriage?
Well, what I meant mostly about that is, I think loving someone or choosing to be in love, I think it's a risk, right? Because you opening yourself up to whoever you choose to love. And I think with true love comes vulnerability, because the people that you open up to, you bring them close to you. And those are the people that you give in power, that they can hurt you the most because you're allowing them in. So I think what happens for most of the time, people, is we come through so many relationships, broken promises, with trust being broken, and by the time you get married, people typically have these walls that they've built around themselves, and it makes it difficult to receive even that love if you have these walls, because you don't know if this person is going to be here forever or this person is going to leave you. The last boyfriend did this to you. So people typically have those walls. And I think that creates a barrier in intimacy. And if you want to be intimate with somebody, is you letting them see into you, right? So if you have those walls, it becomes difficult to receive that love, sometimes even hard to give that love because you don't want to give it and then it end up being wasted or lost. So I think that's a risk that if you choose to love and choose to be in a committed relationship, you are giving that person that power to hurt you. And without vulnerability, there's no intimacy. Hence, there's no true love that can go deeper with those walls around.
Thank you.
That's what I meant.
That's what you meant. Thank you. We're curious to know what your expectations were before you got married. Because it seemed like you talked about your bad boy days. when you were breaking hearts left and right. And
Yes.
then finally you got to a point where you were looking to settle down and then you settled down. But I just wanted to know what your expectations were. If you had any expectations.
If I had any expectations, I give you a little bit of history. Or actually, I guess an epiphany in a sense. You ever believe that if you see the one, that's it?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that? Have you ever?
About love at first sight or no?
I guess you could say in the sense of love at first sight, but mine wasn't love at first sight. And I'll tell you, give you a little bit of my history on why I said that. I was in a relationship during the time that I actually saw my wife. I was in a relationship, but I knew the relationship was not going anywhere. This kind of also alludes to what Abang kind of mentioned about being vulnerable. I was in a relationship and really knew the relationship wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't the type that liked to argue, and this young lady came from a past relationship where she likes to argue, so she felt that our relationship also had to be on that base. So therefore, I checked out mentally. And checking out mentally, saw a young lady, and I don't know where it came from, and something told me that that's who I'm to marry.
Let me interrupt you for a second. What does checking out mentally means? Like
checking out to the point where I built up a wall. Now you no longer could get in. Now my emotions that I feel for you to say I love you, because loving and being in love is two different things. So being able to tell that individual that I love them, I no longer felt that in myself to say I love that person. I wasn't in love with them. It was just, I guess at that point, now it was just a thing to do until I finally, break away. So I pretty much just did the basic, or I guess in a sense you could say nothing, until this individual felt like, okay, well, it's time for me to break up with him. So when they said it, I was fine with it. But in the meantime, my mind was set on somebody else, even though I hadn't approached them. And then when I finally did, I told the person, give me a call, and this was in 2009, and we've been inseparable ever since.
When a person is broken, right, they have to do a lot of work alone before they get into a relationship, right? Before they get into either long-term, whatever the case may be. Why is that important?
Well, once you've dealt with whatever baggage that you have, that then allows you to be able to freely give yourself to whoever you choose to be with. That then allows you to open up, because that's when you are able to break those walls on your own before. Because imagine being in a relationship with somebody who has those kind of walls that you can't get into them, or you can't be that close to them. That relationship will most likely not last, or will not be a meaningful one. So I think people typically will jump from one relationship to the other without ever dealing with those past issues. And they're not always relationship issues. It could be issues you had growing up as a child. It could be whatever it might have been. It's not just romantic relationships. It could be with your parents. It could be with whatever issues that you might have. So I think typically people get in a relationship trying to figure out what can I get from you, what you can get from the other person. But I think the better approach is, what can I give? What do you have to give to another person? You don't want to, you want to offer yourself as a gift, and you want it to look presentable. You want it to look not perfect, but good enough. You don't want to give somebody something that's broken.
Right.
So that's why you work on yourself, so that once you, and I want to talk more so on a marriage relationship, which is supposed to be lifetime, right?
Right.
So you want to give yourself to that person with yourself being whole, and a lot of that is the work that you have to do on your own.
Right.
And I think sometimes people get in relationship thinking, oh, if I get a right man or a right woman, they'll fix me. Or you meet somebody that's broken and you think you're gonna fix them,
Right. Oh, boy.
you know, and yes, there are some issues that you might still have to fix once you are in this relationship, because
Right.
once you get into that intimate relationship, then the other person kind of becomes a mirror. So you get to see some other stuff that you might not have seen before,
right.
up until you got into that intimate relationship
Space,
with somebody.
right.
So it's always work and it's ongoing, but a lot
Right.
of it has to happen before you commit to somebody else.
Right. Alone before
That's
you
right,
commit to
that's
someone
right.
else. Now, Richard, thank you so much, Abang. Again, Richard, you're a fitness instructor, so
Yeah.
you know you're into the physicality, and you know we have the show me culture, right? You know, women want to enlarge everything,
Yeah.
as a way of. I mean, some women would say they do that because they want to for themselves. I know women we do say we do it for ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
you did share with me that women dress up for other women.
Yes.
I think that's partially true. I think deep down inside us, we also do it for the man,
Yeah.
right? But does that really keep a marriage? Does that really attract a man? Does that really hold a man? I mean, it's a thing where you get on Instagram and it's all
Okay.
in your face, right? I just want
Okay.
you, yeah. Does that? What does? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess to give breakdowns into that question,
Yes, please.
there's lust, which is a heavy thing, and I think some people entwine lust with love.
Okay.
And I would say generally for men, when you're looking at the physical appearance of a woman, right? What we see most of the time is the physical, as I said, physical. Before we try to figure out what's in your mind, we're more wondering about what's the outer layers look like, right? We're checking out your your breasts, we're checking out your behind. Things those are the things that in our mind, because as a man, we're sexually always thinking about how we could get the next climax with another woman. Even though you're married doesn't mean you still don't lust, because no matter how you look at it, you have a ratio of 30-1, right? So that means if your significant other, your wife, your girlfriend or something, and put it in a context, and some may get upset at this, but then you have 29 others that possibly one could say yes, maybe two, maybe three, who knows?
So it's like a chase in a sense.
It's always a chase. A man is known as a hunter.
I always thought that's just in the book, but yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, you can say it's in the book. You can say it's in the book.
No.
But how many men will really admit to that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So it's kind of, you look at it in the sense that you see these women, go do all these body augmentations just because they're not happy within themselves. It's not for a man. And theoretically, it may not be for another woman. But another woman will compliment another woman before a man realistically would.
That's true.
We may compliment you, but it may have some intention behind it. Not all, but it may.
Right.
So you got to look at it in the sense that, this woman, when it got a breast enhancement, when it got, a butt enhancement, we don't care to the full extent as much as you think we do. So you went to go through all of this for who? Certainly wasn't for me. Because
So go ahead. So you're saying that loss and love. So with the loss part, that's just the physical, right? But then with the love part, it's more internal.
It's more internal. It's more internal. And plus, you gotta also understand. I think, and I don't know if Abang kind of stated this, but when you love somebody, I could love anything. I could tell you I love you. But there's a difference to be in love with somebody. When you're in love with the person, you take them as they are.
Right.
You take them for what they are.
Right.
Because we all, no matter which way you look at it, we all have pet peeves. There are
Right.
things that you may not like about that individual. There's things that individual may not like about you.
Right.
But we call it compromise.
Right.
You got to compromise. But you're compromising based on your pet peeves of what you don't like about that individual.
That's true.
But then internally, that should start changing who you are,
Right.
and also start changing who
Changing
that
who.
person is. Because now both of you are compromising to make each other happy. That's where, some people lose the translation because they stop communicating about what they don't like about this person and what that person don't like about that person, because it's hard for us as human beings as a whole to take constructive criticism,
Yes, right,
because we feel like we're being attacked.
right.
Especially is worse when it comes to the person that you said you're in love with.
Love with.
Oh, why are you saying this? Oh, am I not good enough for you? So all the doubts start settling in.
Okay.
And upon lust, you got to look at it like this. When you're married, and you probably always hear this, do whatever it takes to make the marriage keep growing. Like,
Right.
just keep doing things.
Right.
Be spontaneous.
Right.
If your significant other, even in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, stop telling you how attractive you are,
Right.
what do you think is going to happen if
Eventually.
another person come tell you how attractive you are?
Attention.
I'm no longer giving you that attention, making
Right.
you feel as a woman as you want to feel, as attractive as you are, or as beautiful as, I need to say it, giving you flowers, whatever the case is, things that got me to get you,
Right.
I had to stop
You
doing.
have to keep doing
You
that.
have to keep doing.
Wow.
So, we go out there and we lust. Doesn't necessarily mean you want to leave your relationship or leave your marriage, but the fact that you're lusting.
Is what. But that I'll come back to that. I do. Abang, you talk about a lot about your parents, right? You talk about how lovely their relationship, their marriage is. They've been married for so long. You talk about how you never saw them fight or argue. And you also said that was something you were looking for when you were deciding to settle down, or you're looking for just the same thing your parents had. But you also mentioned to me that is not necessarily healthy, because in my eyes, as someone who comes from a different background, right, I would think, okay, my parents argue all the time, that's unhealthy. But you're saying it otherwise. I just want you to just talk to me about that a little.
Oh yeah, so my parents are best friends. If you ever want a picture of best friends, come have tea with my parents, and you just see best friends enjoying each other, right? So I grew up with that. They would be up till the late hours talking and laughing, making jokes, and best friends, loving each other and all of that. So I grew up with that. So I grew up wanting to get married because I wanted what my parents have, right? And I got married, and a few months after that, we ran into a conflict. And here we are bickering at each other, yelling and all of that. And I remember sitting down thinking, whoa, that's it. My marriage is done. We're fighting. Because I had never seen my parents fight. So to me, married people don't fight. Married people don't raise their voices at each other. So when I first experienced that, I was devastated. Like, I love her, she loves me, why are we fighting? So it took me a while to understand that you do have those moments where you don't see eye to eye. And yes, emotions might get the best of you at times. But how do you then not take it too personal to a point where to me it was so exaggerated because I had never seen that. So I remember having that talk with my parents that, did you guys ever fight? And they told me, yes, we did. We just would not fight in front of you. We'll go in our bedroom or we'll wait till you guys went to bed and deal with our conflict.
Right.
So to me, that was the lesson that, you still need to show people that you will have conflict in marriage.
Right.
But how do you resolve that?
Right.
Because the conflict can be healthy, but
Right.
it's just about how you run around it. So to me, it came as a shock when I first got married with my first conflict, because I had never seen, well, not that I had never seen it, but I wanted what my parents have. And in my mind, they had no conflict. So it messed up with my mind for a while. So it took me a while to understand that
to get,
it's
come out
okay
of that.
to have conflict every
Right.
now and then.
Thank you. Richard, is love enough? Do you think love is enough when it comes to marriage?
No. So I have what you call a trinity.
Trinity, okay.
You need love, you You need communication. You need finance. If one of the three is out of sync, it hurts the relationship, because you always have to have all three in sync. If you guys can't communicate, how are you going to love each other? How are you really going to love each other? Because if I'm upset, you're upset, do you think I want to lay next to you? And we can't resolve the issue? If we're struggling and we have no money, we can't hold on to the house, we can't hold on to the cars, what do you think that's going to cause? Friction. So you have to be able to make sure that at all times, all three are in place. But on the same note, everybody have to know their role in the marriage, because I might be good with finance and you may not. I might be good with communicating and you may not. So you have to figure out ways to always make sure all three works at all times. And a lot of times people just say, oh, it's, I'm staying in it because I love the person. Then you're not happy. So what is it? And like I told you earlier, you have it where a lot of times people stop communicating. And that makes the relationship also start growing separately. So love is not enough. You need all three. Yes.
Love is not enough. So submission is a big word. I use big because we have used it over and over and over. Even the word submission is actually running away at this point, because for some reason it's one-sided. Men feel as though women have to submit. And especially from the context of African culture, that's massive. But I believe that submission is from both sides. Like a man has to submit to a woman, likewise women do to a man. And I want you to just talk to me about that. You're married, is it separate? Is this something that you would want from your wife only, or do you both do that? Practice that?
You're right. It's a big word and it's a sensitive topic.
It is.
Right? So I view it from both angles. I view it from two angles. One is an African man, which typically in an African culture, men are dominant and women don't associate that much with men, and men just sits there, reads his newspaper, and you serve him, right?
Wow.
Typically speaking,
Right.
Or generally speaking. And then I also view it from a Christian perspective.
Okay.
So for me, if you ask me how I see that, I think there's order, right? You have children in a family, you have a mother, you have a father, you have God.
Okay.
So in my mind, there are times where as a husband you do submit, because we talked about finances and all that. You might find that somebody's good at something and the one is not. So there are times in my situation where I have to submit to my wife when it comes to issues of finances, because she's more learned when it comes to that.
Right.
How you handle finances, how she's handling finances. She does a better job than I do on that. So when it comes to issues of that, I let her run that show.
Right.
And, there's parts where she lets me do, where she would just follow my lead on that. But generally speaking, I believe, because there will be times where you disagree on things. And there's got to be, you can't have two pilots.
You cannot have two pilots?
Two drivers. You only have one driver
Right.
driving a car. Let me use a car analogy. You can't have, as a driver, if I'm on my driver's seat, I'm the one who's deciding where we're turning, how fast we're running. And yes, you might, as a co-driver, you might tell me, hey, baby, slow down. You're speeding too much. And then I'll listen to you. Am I submitting when I'm slowing down? I would say, but I'm in the driver's seat. So there's gotta be.
So you're saying they gotta be older, but doesn't that switch though? Because one last thing, doesn't that switch? Because in my mind, there's no way on earth a marriage would work if it's one-sided, right? If it's one-sided, because I think that sometimes you're on the driver's seat and sometimes she's on the other side, but it also switches, and it has to be something that you both do.
Right, and like I said, in some instances, in my situation currently with finances, so I would submit to, if my wife say, hey, we're not buying that 75-inch TV screen and I want it, I'm not gonna go, hey, I'm the man, I'm gonna buy it. She says no. She handles the finances well. But what I'm saying, generally speaking, and it's easier to submit. You know, a lot of people look at it as a bad word or as an ugly word. If you look at it when done properly, I think for me, reading my Bible, the man is the head of the family. God is top. Then you have your husband, right? You have the man who's the head of the family. But it makes the neck. Some people would refer to it as the neck.
I hear that
But
one,
it's easier to submit, I think, even as a wife, to a husband that you
is
know
loving.
has your best
Yeah.
intentions at heart, that you know he won't lead you, because somebody has to make the decisions.
Right.
You have two different people, and you are going to you need to be going to the same direction.
Right.
So there's going to be areas of conflict
Right,
for
right,
like
right.
so there's got to be the one like, who's the tiebreaker, because you have two people.
Right.
So if one says right, one says left, who's the tiebreaker at that point? You got to have that.
Right.
And I think when you are in a loving relationship where you know your husband will die for you, and you know as a husband that your wife will die for you, and then you entrusting him like, listen, all right, you the head, and I will follow you. I will follow your lead. Where you go, I will go, because you know he won't lead you he won't lead you to danger. It becomes difficult, I believe, to submit to somebody where you always have to be looking behind your back, like you don't
Right,
trust him. You
okay.
know he's selfish, he's whatever.
Okay.
But when you know you are in a loving relationship, when you are in an intimate
It
relationship,
happens naturally.
it happens naturally that
Okay.
he's my husband, and he won't do anything to harm me.
Okay.
And you do it, and you as the husband, that actually puts more pressure on you,
to
because
be
you know
better.
you have this person that's entrusting you with their life. You have these kids that are looking up to you. So that's a lot of pressure on a man at that point, which some men would rather not have it and just run away and let the women run them around and all of that. But then, and my wife will tell me, like, I need you to leave. She needs me to sometimes make the decision, because
Right.
there are some hard decisions you have to make in a marriage.
Right.
And then who's going to make those decisions?
Right.
But she knows I love her, and she knows I pray on things, I think through things, and I'll ask her. I don't make this decision outside of her.
Marriage. I mean, getting a text from a man who's married is fine, but then there are inappropriate texting that you would receive
Okay.
that would kind of make you go, what is he doing and what's going on? You know what I mean?
Okay.
When you see a text message like that, automatically you're thinking all men are the same. But I want you to just clarify that. I mean, I don't think all men cheat, but I want you to clarify. Do all men cheat?
That's interesting. You know, I think we intend to use a lot of generalization a lot of times, but on the same note, there's a lot of times we're all very inappropriate because it might start off sensitive, as in like in a nice way. Let me wind that a little bit. Now, if you want to say all men cheat, right, or at least use that statement, would it be possible for us to cheat without the other person receiving us?
No. It's
So-
my street.
Which is a question that I think a lot of us don't really put into a good context when we're looking at it. Because if you want to talk about the man, most of the time, even though we, in my opinion, we don't choose you choose us. Because if a female see us, in her mind, she could tell you within a split second if she's going to sleep with him or not. So does that realistically make it that it's us that's cheating? Or is it the woman that's allowing us or receiving us in the way that we're already looking at them anyway?
Wow.
So the friendly text becomes, let me push the button a little bit. Let me
Right.
see
To
what I
see
can,
how far I can go.
how far I can go. If that female receives me that way, then that's an
Then you-
invitation to me. Now, does that make me seem that I'm cheating? In a marriage, yes, that's wrong. But looking at another woman in a marriage is wrong. Without even just admiring another woman, not necessarily saying that you want to go home with her or anything like that in that sense, but that's considered cheating in a marriage. Even if you're in a relationship, you look at another female, or your girl look at another guy,
Right.
that's considered cheating.
You-
But that also goes back to that lust.
that you mentioned.
that
You
I
know what's
mentioned.
interesting? I just wanted to say this last thing and before we close. When they use the term all men cheats,
Yeah.
right? It's crazy how we look at it from just men, from that just
Correct.
man would do this or man would do this, right? But you just made me understand that it's never one way.
No.
Because a man cheats with whom? A woman. So basically
Exactly.
all women cheat. If you're saying all men cheats. Because a man cannot do it by himself, right?
I'll give you a funny
In a
statistics.
sense.
I know I always give you a couple of statistics. On dating website, there are more married women on a dating website than there is single men. Look at it.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.